Hey folks, it's me, Swank Ivy, with another Letters to an Asexual. This is number 63. This one's going to be a little different than usual, but it still has a letter, it still has a response. You may just see that the format ends up being quite a bit different than my usual. I want to address the subject of today's letter is going to be maturity, and I have addressed this before, a little less comprehensively than I'm going to in this video, but I'm also going to get a little personal, and hopefully that will bring some perspective to this issue. I know it continues to be a struggle for some asexual people and some aromantic people and people who are on the ace spectrum, that they are regarded as immature or going through a phase, and unfortunately there are some people who will weaponize that. And I recently had someone try to do that to me in the comments, and even though I don't necessarily want to give too much attention to this particular person or the issue itself as if I'm legitimizing it, I want y'all to really understand, if you're here to listen, why this is such a toxic and terrible thing to use as a weapon against asexual people when you're trying to get them to fall in line, and also to give you some talking points and some thoughts. And if you're in this situation where you're getting regarded as immature or being told that you can't possibly be a mature person if you don't have these particular relationships, or your relationships don't quite look like what is expected of you, then maybe you'll learn a few things from the way that I put these things in perspective in this video as to how to frame your own life if you're getting this kind of pushback in your life. So first I'm going to read you the letter, which is a YouTube comment that was on one of my videos recently. So this person left me this message, someone named Sandra, and she says, "Embrace your life of regression with your childlike attire and lifestyle if it helps you cope with your past trauma. You have the right to do what brings you peace and the dignity to bear the consequences of your own inequities." So I was obviously not impressed by her assessment of me, and I was feeling pretty sarcastic. So this is how I responded to her. And I said, "I like how in today's world people say they've been abused and no one believes them, but then other people like me are assigned trauma by sanctimonious passive-aggressive strangers. Look, you're not fooling anyone. Everyone here knows you say these things because it makes you feel better to judge us, not because you actually think you're saying anything we will find inspirational or useful." What a turd of a comment. So she responded quoting my entire response to her, and then re-quoted the part about how I said I like how in today's world people say they've been abused and no one believes them. She goes, "Well, I don't think many people would agree with you on that. That's an awful thing to say." I guess she didn't understand that was completely sarcastic. And in case you don't understand how I was framing that, I'm saying in today's world we have lots of people reporting that sexual assaults and violence have happened to them, and people just push it aside, say it didn't happen, say it shouldn't have hurt them the way it did if it did damage them. But then on the flip side, there's people like me who say, actually, I don't have any trauma in my past. And here's this lady saying, "Yes, you do. Yes, you do. Your life of regression shows that you're dealing with your trauma." Like, they're putting it into my life and saying it is there. So it's basically the opposite of that, and that's how I was framing that. But she's acting like I was straight up saying that I like that people have been abused and no one believes them. Like, really? Really? So her comment continues and says, "A comment like that just shows everyone how immature you really are, if they haven't seen it already. Same thing with the second part of that sentence, telling me how you were assigned trauma by sanctimonious passive-aggressive strangers. Grow up. It really saddens me to think that possibly someday you'll wake up and suddenly you are 50, 60, or 70. You'll look in the mirror and reflect on your life. You'll discover that your teenage hope of having a satisfying relationship didn't happen. And it never will, because you were never going to do it anyway. You'll push it into memory and then zone out in your apartment. while you embrace a stuffed animal right before you make letter to an asexual, number 296. Don't you talk to me about fooling people. You want something inspirational and useful? Here it is. You deserve a better life for yourself. I've said what I wanted to say. So, like I said, my response is going to be a little different than usual, but first I should say addressing people like that is kind of a waste of time. I don't want to engage with someone who has already looked at what I've done for myself, looked at the clues in what I decide to present to you folks on YouTube, and has concluded that I'm living a regressive life in response to trauma and feels comfortable saying that to me. Like, they've already made their ignorant judgments. They're not here to listen. I don't have anything to say to people like that. They're not listening. But for people who are actually here to learn, or for people who are experiencing this, who want something to respond to if they get something like this, I want to show you kind of some perspectives on why this is such a toxic, terrible thing to weaponize maturity, and to really try to get across to you a complete picture of why this is so wrong-headed and so potentially damaging people, and just ultimately it's such an ignorant perspective. Okay, so I know I have addressed this maturity issue before in shorter videos, and it really doesn't necessarily need to be addressed again, but let me start by telling you a secret. Mature people generally don't worry about whether they are mature. We just don't. So somebody coming into my life being like, oh, you're a baby, you're immature, like, okay, I don't care what you think, and I really don't. It may seem strange that somebody who says they don't care is making a long video about it, and I think it'll become a little clearer toward the end when I get to that point, why I think this is worth making a video about. But we don't care if you think we're immature. Like, when you're a grown-up and you talk to other grown-ups, we're not constantly judging each other's maturity. It's just not a thing adults do. If they're actually mature, they're not thinking about it all the time. They're not thinking, what choices can I make? What clothing can I wear to make sure nobody thinks I'm a baby, nobody thinks I'm young, or nobody thinks that I'm too immature. It's like, when you're secure in that, you really don't think about it. And that may seem like a strange thing for someone like me to say, when I obviously do things like wear glitter and own a lot of toys, but that's kind of like part of my whole I don't care perspective. It's just like, if I like a thing, I'm not worried about whether some other grown-up is going to judge me, because I just don't care what that person thinks. I guess that sounds maybe like, I don't care what you think, like this counterculture idea, but it's a little deeper than that. It's just like, your idea of who I should be and how I should express myself as an adult is literally irrelevant to me. And maybe that's partially because I actually am a mature person who isn't always worrying about whether somebody else thinks I'm mature. I mean, isn't that just a quintessentially sort of babyish thing to do, is if you're always worrying if you look like a grown-up? I don't see how that's a mature thing to do, and I also don't see how having to actively groom yourself to seem more mature is proof that you've become mature. It's just, it's very focused on appearances, it's very focused on posturing and performative aspects of your life. Just, sure, you're going to act differently around different people because of wanting them to have a different perspective of you, but I can't really remember the last time I honestly worried about whether someone thought I was mature enough. It just doesn't cross my mind until or unless I get a comment like this. Okay, so I'm gonna start this with a personal story. This whole immaturity thing started for me way before asexuality was relevant to my life. The earliest I think I can remember being shamed for being immature, I think I was maybe 7 or 8, and my friend and I had found these baby bonnets and we wanted to wear them to the skating rink. We thought they were cute hats. Yes, we knew they were baby bonnets, but we really didn't care that they were baby bonnets. And so we put them on our heads and we wanted to go to the skating rink, and we got yelled at, "Oh, you girls think that you're babies. Are you going to wear a pacifier? Like, you can't wear that." And I guess I don't remember the actual outcome, but I do remember finding a way to go to the skating rink and wear what I wanted to wear. And I didn't feel like a baby wearing it. I was aware that it was made for babies, but it was also a piece of cloth that is not inherently an item that could only belong to a baby. It's like, what if I just like how it looks? It doesn't make me a baby. I'm a 7-year-old or an 8-year-old. It's like, what if I thought that was cute? And I don't really understand the purpose of telling a 7 or 8-year-old, hey, if you wear this baby bonnet, then you're going to be a baby. Like, I'm not going to be. So, it sounds kind of strange, but I feel like that is a pointless thing for a parent to do. And, you know, they could say, hey, I don't want you to go out wearing really bizarre stuff or stuff that's inappropriate because it will reflect on me. Theoretically, it will be on the kid. You know, the kid is choosing to do that, and the parent can just shrug and say, hey, what my kid likes is a little weird, maybe they'll grow out of it. But it's like, the idea that you have to instill the shame yourself and say everyone's going to think you're a baby if you put on a baby hat. It's like, they probably will not. Kids do weird things. I mean, people of all ages do weird things. And, you know, a parent could say, hey, if I let you do this thing that indicates lack of judgment, then I will be judged. But for stuff like that, I feel like you should pick your battles, because, you know, I'm not regressing into not being able to do anything for myself if I wear a baby bonnet to the skating rink. Like, I'm skating, a baby can't do that. So I guess it's just kind of a judgment call. It's like picking your battles with things like, if your child is not interested in things that are typical for their own age, but once or twice, you know, they want to do something like play a baby game or put a baby hat on. It's like, what damage is that doing? This kind of leads into my next point, which is about, like, with celebrity kids. Celebrity kids get a lot of this. They tend to do a lot of really wild stuff with their hairstyles, their clothes, and of course people talk crap about their parents and say, you know, these famous people are letting their kid make a fool of themselves and judging their parenting. But it's kind of like, with celebrities, they are free to do that because nothing will happen to them if they can't function normally in society. If they just want to do whatever they want to do, then, you know, they're still provided for. They're still rich. They're still going to have opportunities, and they're probably not going to have to value conformity to the extent that a lot of other people who are in lower social classes will have to, in order to be thought normal enough to, you know, be accepted, be hired, you know, that sort of thing. And that's, a lot of times, that's why you see celebrity kids and celebrities in general just kind of going wild with stuff, doing whatever they want, because there really aren't consequences. And as a result, they can be creative, they can be trendsetters, and we need that. We need trendsetters. We need people who are willing to risk maybe being made fun of, or having somebody tell them they're doing something that's too wild or something inappropriate for them on some level, and say, well, the thing is I want to do it and there's no downside. You know, if you're willing to deal with kind of how people might react to you, and that doesn't bother you. It didn't bother me. You know, if somebody had asked me at the skating rink, why are you wearing that bonnet on your head? I'd be like, well, I like it. And they'd be like, oh, okay. You know, I guess kids can be cruel, but I don't know. I wouldn't have been insulted if a kid called me a baby because I was wearing a baby bonnet. Like, it's just, I don't know, it didn't faze me. And I feel like that kind of prepared me for when I was older and I had interests that weren't as popular, or I was getting shamed for, you know, still liking things if they were made for kids that were younger than me, or like when I was a preteen and I wanted to go trick-or-treating. I enjoyed trick-or-treating. What's wrong with it, really? If you don't feel awkward doing it as a bigger kid and you're enjoying yourself and you're not hurting anyone, you're not making anybody else feel threatened by being there, you're not taking away from a finite amount of candy from kids, you know, it's a fun time. And the idea that, like, oh, you shouldn't be able to have that fun even though you're having fun, you shouldn't be able to have that because you're just too old now, it's very strange, because you know, most people who grow out of stuff like Halloween, stuff like trick-or-treating, they grow out of it because they just, you know, they're not really jazzed by it anymore. They just kind of, they get to a point where that doesn't really seem fun to them, to dress up and run around in the dark and get candy. It's like, I don't know, that seemed fun to me well into my 30s, and I would still trick-or-treat if, you know, if it was not as much of a logistical problem as it later became. So that's another story. But I don't find any like inherent shame in, you know, when other people try to shame me, like, oh, you do that, that's for little kids. I'm like, okay, well, I still like it. So what are you gonna do? Are you mad at me for enjoying that? What really harm is that doing if I'm enjoying it? And conversely, what harm is being done to a person who is getting shamed for what they like? Really, what harm are they doing by liking something like a baby bonnet or going trick-or-treating? It should be noted that this also happens with gender. People who are non-gender conforming frequently get this kind of thing, especially little boys that may want to wear clothes that are traditionally feminine, and all kinds of assumptions are made about those boys, and, you know, anybody else who is deemed to be dressing or acting outside of their gender expectations. So this starts pretty young. People get shamed into being told, hey, this is for you, that's not for you, and you should feel bad about it if you want to do it anyway. And it becomes so that a person doesn't, like, inherently want to stop doing the thing. They need to stop doing the thing because they're getting bullied, they're getting hurt. And that is a choice by people to bully. That is not just a natural expression. You know, it's not like a waterfall is always going to fall where it falls, or lightning is always going to strike, or hurricanes are going to hit you if you live in a hurricane path. It's just like, they are not like natural disasters. They're choices people make, and parenting for the kids that bully, you know, backs that up, and they're being taught that that's how you should react to people who are different, or people who like something that you think you're too mature for now. So I think really it's a problem of bullying. And it comes from adults to younger people as well. And I think that's a real shame, because like I said, there's nothing actually wrong with wearing a bonnet to a skating rink if that's something that you want to do. At the end of the day, people who really think they know what's going on inside of someone else's head, how mature they are, how competent they are, whether they've experienced trauma by how they dress, how they look, they are actually engaging in a very immature, judgmental, ignorant behavior. And what I want to know is, why are those people so preoccupied with other people, with our happiness, with our maturity, to the point that they think they need to come into our spaces and tell us that we should act differently? Next point, people have been waiting for my lifestyle to make me sad my entire life. I think the first time I heard something like this, I might have been around 18 or 19, and they were telling me that I was going to get lonely any day now, and sometime in my 20s I would admit it in a blaze of sadness and get married and have children by the time I was 25. Then once I made it into my 20s, it was age 30 I was being threatened with. This was also kind of largely inspired by like MRA types who 30 is a magic number for them, where they decide that women expire at age 30, and that we're gonna have a lot of fun in our teens and 20s torturing good guys and only having sex with the nasty ones. And then by the time we hit 30, we'll suddenly expire, we'll realize how useless we are because we're not young and beautiful anymore, and we'll be so sorry, and we'll have to, marry someone, or else we'll just explode from loneliness or something. But anyway, like, 30 was this like horrible number that they were throwing around at me when I was in my 20s, that I'm gonna be 30 and alone, and I'm just like, I plan to be. That's kind of that's the deal. That's literally what I'm trying to do and intend to do. I'm not scared of 30, and it's like when Christians tell atheists that they're going to go to hell. If they don't believe in it, then they're not going to be scared of that. I'm not worried about being alone at 30, because that's the idea. So then 30 came and went, and then it was 40. I'm 40 right now, y'all. And, I'm still not terrified of the prospects. Like, people keep increasing the number, I guess, expecting at some point it's just gonna kick in, that I've realized I've made a mistake, and they're hanging on there waiting for me to realize what a terrible choice it was for me to, follow my own inclinations. I guess they just expect me to draw like comparisons between the way pop culture likes to portray lonely old women, and that I'll have to see that in myself. But I just thought it was really funny that the person who made that comment threatened me with 50. I think it's now 50 because I'm already 40, so 40 is not scary anymore. I'm still so unrepentant and not realizing that I'm sad. So now I have to wait till I'm 50 to wake up one morning and realize how sad I am, and look in the mirror and reflect on my life of abuse and loneliness and hug my stuffed animals. So here's something I wonder if they ever think about. Are they ever gonna wake up one day and realize how pathetic it is to be preoccupied with me? And how disgusting is it that you're deriving joy from that idea that one day I'm gonna realize you were right, and then I'm gonna be sad, and that's gonna bring you joy? Is that not one of the most pathetic things you've ever heard? I don't want them to be sad. I'm not hanging around their social media waiting for them to be sad. I just want them to leave me alone. Next point, let's reverse this a little bit. Have you ever wondered what you missed out on because somebody else shamed you into thinking you shouldn't want it? Honestly, so many of the things that I enjoy doing that aren't necessarily common for people my age, they have been so rewarding, and other people who do those things or enjoy those things have told me how much my doing them has enriched their lives. I mean, it's all positive, it's all stuff we're enjoying about our lives, and I don't understand why somebody would say, oh, I have this principle that I'm going to apply from outside your life just to, wreck your fun for no reason because you see, adults don't really do that. I'm like, why shouldn't they? If I'm enjoying it and I don't feel like this is weird for me, and other people are getting some enjoyment or some enrichment out of something that I'm doing, why shouldn't I do it? If I'm making choices that you personally don't think you would find rewarding, that is fine. I'm not asking you to change what you're doing, but you're asking me to change what I'm doing because you think an adult shouldn't do it, or that it's not leading to the lifestyle that adults generally want. I'm just thinking, I've never looked at somebody else's life and said, gosh, that is sad that they're really having a good time, because they shouldn't be. So let me ask you this. How many people are unhappy now because they internalized things in their childhood that they weren't supposed to enjoy what they wanted to enjoy, and they swallowed it, they internalized it, and now they can't be happy because they were taught that this is how they should live their lives? How many people out there now feel that certain avenues are off limits to them because grown-ups don't do that, or maybe people of their gender, or people of their age, people of their generation, people of their race are not supposed to do that thing, and they've internalized what everybody tried to shame them into believing, and now they feel like they don't have that avenue to happiness anymore. Okay, next point. That person tried to frame me as living some kind of pathetic, sad life, but I'm actually doing great. So I want to give you a little peek into my personal life here, but at the same time I don't want you to take that as this is what makes me mature or anything. I just want to show you that as a person living on her own terms, this is kind of what my terms look like. And I'm just kind of showing you this because people keep making these snide assumptions, suggesting that they have any idea what my life is like, but they have no idea. So I'm just going to give you a peek at it. So my living space is completely on my own terms. I live in a 1,500 square foot 4-bedroom house with a 2-car garage, and it's all mine. I have, I have a bedroom that I use for personal use, just for me, and then one of the bedrooms is a guest bedroom, and one of the bedrooms is my office, and I also get to have a den with a fireplace, and a living room and a kitchen, and all this space, and it's exactly what I always wanted to have. Actually, let me give you a look at it. This here is my bedroom. It's the smallest bedroom in the house, and since I just use a single bed there, I chose this one as mine because that's all I need. Little nightstand there and my dresser. Maybe I shouldn't have showed you that because I got my toy displays up there, and that makes me a baby. I've got all these plushies here and dolls, and that makes me a baby too. I should be ashamed of this. So this is my cool little guest bedroom. It has a 2-person bed for if guests stay over, a little bookshelf there, and a little desk, a bunch of writing books, and a closet. Decent sized little room. Yo, I've got a bathroom. This is kind of the big bathroom. And I don't know about this shower curtain here. It's got cherries on it. That's not very mature of me. Look at that hand soap shaped like a pumpkin. That might mean I'm immature and silly. Not sure about that. I might be judged. I should take that stuff down. Yo, here's my office. This is where the magic happens. I got my computer over there and, you know, great room. Has an awful lot of silly stuff in it though, you know. A lot of my stickers and toys, hair stuff. It's pretty busy in here. There's the other bathroom if you're curious. Woohoo. You know, art table, books, sewing desk, and all these toys. I mean, there's no way that a mature person could live in a place that has an office that looks like that. Oh, there's some vitamins there by the computer. Maybe that's proof I'm sort of an old person. I don't know. Check out my incredible, excellent kitchen. With all this dishes and cups and stuff that grown-ups use. I even keep my plants alive. Holy crap. There's my breakfast table. Oh, uh-oh. I was doing some arts and crafts last night that I forgot to clean up because I'm not performing for you. Well, I was using Elmer's glue and safety scissors. I'm probably a baby. Oh, look at that. It's a refrigerator covered in silly magnets. If you look on the far side there, there's a bunch of alphabet magnets. My almost 5-year-old nephew loves to play with those, but I had them before he was born. Maybe I'm a baby. There's my oh so mature coffee machine. These things are cool because like I actually have it converted so you can use loose coffee in them rather than those K-cup things. Uh-oh. Look at that. My coffee mug has a cartoon on it. I'm probably not mature enough to drink coffee. I should just stop pretending that I have a grown-up life. My goodness. This counter space is awesome. I love my house. This here is kind of like a fourth bedroom. It technically isn't a bedroom because it doesn't have a closet, but it's like an extra room. And I kind of use it as a game room and a den. It's a little couch there, a toy box. Oh, I must be a baby. There's my coloring books and my lightsaber and my board games. A couple pretty adult games over there. I don't know about Cards Against Humanity, but that's not for little kids. So cookbooks and baking stuff and my fireplace. This door goes out to the patio. Let's look at the patio. Man, I love this patio. I sit out there on Sunday mornings and answer my email. Woo. Oh, daylight. Don't let it burn you. Ooh. My outdoor table here is covered with the table covering and some chair coverings because, like, adults have to pretend they take care of their things. There's my little garden guys. See my rock potatoes. They're cute. Got a big lawn here, backyard, with a tire swing. I don't like tire swings though. My nephew likes it. Really nice trees out here, man. Bear with me because you got to see this tree. Dude, this tree. Oh, it's an incredible tree. I don't think my thing is going to reach though. I don't have good battery power on this guy, so I keep it plugged in. Let me see if I can show you this tree. Man, this is a digression. But yeah, this tree is amazing. Whoa. Tree. I've got posters on my wall that have cartoons on them. So I'm probably a small child. There's all my pillows that my mom made me for floor sitting and a game board. That's my garage. 2-car garage. Got lots of storage space in here. It's, you know, not all that interesting, but the washing machine and dryer are out here because, you know, I have to do grown-up stuff like wash my clothes. There's some tools and my cool telescope out here. Yo. Oh man, you gotta see my amazing living room. Here's the entranceway. Look at this place. Tell me you wouldn't love to live here. Look at all my bookshelves. I'm very happy here. That living room is like huge, and I've never had so much space in the previous places that I lived. I'm very, very happy with what I managed to get here. It's like my dream home. Sorry, veggie dog break. So anyway, I love my house, and I love how I live in it, and I love how everything's on my terms. And I say this because I deal with a lot of snide comments from people who just like assume that somebody else must be supporting me or that I live on somebody else's terms, but I really don't. This is literally how I've always wanted my life to be, and I got it. So when it comes to work, I hold down a 40-hour-a-week job at an engineering consultant as a documents coordinator. I get to make use of my editing skills and organization skills and people skills and technical skills, time management skills, and you know, people sometimes assume I'll have like a specific kind of job. Actually, one commenter even insulted me a whole bunch of times and then asked me, what liberal university did you go to and what bookstore or coffee shop do you work at? But like, that is not my reality. It's messed up that he used those jobs as if they were automatically insulting, but you know, it doesn't describe what I'm actually doing. And not that this actually like proves anything, but I actually make slightly more money every year than the median household in Florida where I live, and that's like taking into account that most households are 2-income households. So I think I'm doing pretty good. So outside of work, I also think I've been reasonably successful and happy with my hobbies. So I'm going to take you on another little tour. Okay, so like most writers, I love reading. So, you know, I have a crap ton of books. Whoa, yeah. So there's some cool science fiction and fantasy. There's my comic books at the bottom in a long box. I'm sure that the fact that I have comic books and graphic novels and, you know, even some picture books down there for my fairy tale collection, yeah, that probably means to these people that I'm a child. See how much I care. So there's my young adult books, science fiction stuff, some kids stuff. Some of these series are really, really excellent. Here's some like classics and regular young adult fiction stuff. Here's kind of the adult literature section. I've got a lot more books over there. Some nonfiction and stuff. A couple other places in the house I've got books as well. But yeah, I love reading. So here we have my little music corner. Some sheet music there. There's my ukulele, my keyboard, some other instruments. Got a violin down there. Even some drumsticks, man. Yeah, I was a music major for a little while, and I thought maybe I would become a singer when I was grown up, but it didn't happen. So, you know, I just dabble. It's fun. Wow, that needs to be tuned, doesn't it? Okay, so I also love baking, so there's all my cookbooks and some of my stuff, like those are recipe boxes, and spices, my rolling pin, my mortar and pestle. Let's see if you can get a look down here. Here's a bunch of sort of specialized instruments. Let me see if I can show you one of the things that I'm very proud of. Okay. That is a cookie cutter drawer. That is so badass. So, I've got a lot of cooking stuff. There's like aprons and junk, and pans and whatnot. So, I've got some pretty swank stuff that I use for my baking. There's my cool cutting board. And of course in the kitchen, I've got all manner of amazing baking stuff. I mostly like to bake cakes and breads and brownies and stuff. Not as much with the cooking, just mostly the baking. I love cupcakes. So here we have the art corner. I love art, but I think I'm mostly just a pencil artist and a marker artist. Not serious about it, just enjoy doodling and expressing myself through comics. I've got, I've got some stickers here though, and if you have stickers, you must be a baby. I don't know, anybody want to make a friendship bracelet? I don't know, arts and crafts are really great. Here's some, well, it's mostly fan art right now. There's like a little corner over there of stuff that's not fan art that I'm working on. Actually, it's some characters from a book I'm working on. My marker collection is really cool. Let's see if you can see that. The cool markers I have are Copic markers. I have a pretty good collection, and they're in those sacks there. Really enjoy coloring with them. They're pretty high-end art markers, and I get these refills for them so you don't have to throw them out when they're empty, and that's like, they're really great. I'm really glad I tried those out. that's kind of the writing desk. My main computer is right there where I write my novels and my essays and stuff. As a present for getting published, my friends and family got me a picture of the book cover framed, which was cool, you know, a little bit cheesy, but you know, you can see right there the copies of the book that I received from my publisher. So, you know, that's a hobby, but it's also something that I've brought in money with. This book won 2 awards and got nominated for 2 other awards. That's pretty cool. You know, and you win money if you win those contests. And more importantly, that has helped a lot of people for, you know, my activism career. So because of stuff like this, and because of my other hobby of making videos and stuff, I've gotten a following for, you know, my asexual activism, which is, you know, it's a hobby, it's not my whole life, but it's something that I got into that I think is very important. And, you know, I'm pretty successful at it, so people will invite me to come talk at their school or to do their event or to come to conferences, and, you know, that's really rewarding. Actually, there's a couple of things up on the wall there. A couple of the awards I won. So I use this computer sometimes. There's that microphone up there. I use that for recording some karaoke stuff or some cover songs. You saw my instruments earlier. And I do like a tiny bit of sewing, if you can see that sewing machine back there. I'm not very good at it, but I've made a costume or two. You know, it's fun to do amateur cosplay or whatever, make a Halloween costume, be able to repair a sock. Right now I'm working on a new novel. I'm actually doing National Novel Writing Month, if you can believe that. I've never done it before. And that's where you write 50,000 words in 30 days. You know, so there's where I do that. So hobby-wise, you know, I also do a little bit of like playing Dance Dance Revolution, or, you know, ping pong or tennis. And I like to make these videos. I run several blogs. I like to write essays, and sometimes I sell those. My book, which I mentioned earlier, it won some awards, but it was also my publisher's best-selling book the year it was published. So like, it went into reprints and had all this attention. So like, I get a royalty check from that every 6 months. And sometimes I sell my short stories or my short nonfiction. And, you know, like occasionally I'll make a little bit of extra money from either selling writing or being paid for a speaking appearance or something like that. So I feel like as far as, you know, like hobbies go, I'm pretty busy. I'm doing things that I feel are rewarding, and sometimes they're even like, they would satisfy judgmental people's ideas of what a productive hobby should be, because I actually make money at them. But obviously it's mostly just about me spending my free time on things that I enjoy. So continuing with the status of my life, my social life is also on my terms. You know, I don't have anyone living with me, and I'm an introvert, so I prefer to spend more time alone, but I kind of don't get to. I really like, you know, interaction with individual people, so most of my interaction with my friends and family is maybe mostly one-on-one, but I entertain at the house about 3 times a week. Sometimes it's just a person coming over for like pizza and cartoons, or, you know, my friend and I go out to dinner every week and hang out and watch TV shows or talk. Sometimes I'll throw a party for family, or I'll throw a party like for Halloween. I have a bunch of my friends over. And, you know, sometimes those same friends, they'll come over to listen to music or do drawings with me. I go out to a drink and draw club. I do a bunch of like sort of meet-up things here and there for things that fit my interests. Until sort of recently we had this queer brunch club that I used to go to, but some drama happened and it's not being run anymore. So, you know, go to a concert, go to a thing every once in a while. I'm not a club person, so I don't tend to go to like party type atmospheres, but you know, I'll go to a concert once in a while. Every once in a while, maybe a vacation or something. But I prefer to entertain in my own home, and I mostly get to do that. So, you know, that's exactly what I want, and I have people to do that with. I have some very close friends that are, you know, just mean the world to me, and I'll go off on a tangent if I talk about this too much, but friendships are really undervalued in our society, and, you know, my closest friends have really been very supportive and lifelong friends for me, so it's not like not having a partner has been lonely for me at all. So sometimes if I'm not like spending social time with a friend, like baking or doing crafts or whatever we do, I also have a lot of long distance friends and family that I'll talk on the phone with, so maybe I'll be talking to them while I'm drawing or while I'm cleaning or something like that. And, you know, it takes a lot of time and attention to stay in touch with as many people as I do. I know my detractors really like to spin my life as one that's very solitary and therefore pathetic and lonely, but it's not actually like that. Even if I did spend a lot more time alone than I do, that wouldn't be a pathetic thing, but it's also true that I don't do that. That's not how my life is. I don't know if they just assume that because I always make videos alone, that therefore there's no one else in my life, but it just goes to show you how eager they are to put me in a little box and judge me for stuff they made up. Now, if you really want to get into adult life crap with me, you're gonna lose there too, because, okay, so I'm kind of the dependable person in like my family and my social circle. You know, I have been fortunate enough to be there for people who are not as stable as me, and I don't want to give too many details just because of privacy, but you know, I've been able to help somebody with their rent when they couldn't make rent, pay somebody's mortgage. I helped someone get a car loan because they didn't have good credit and I did. I have paid legal fees for someone. I have bought people things that they just needed. You know, pay for expenses along the way for, you know, something that they didn't have the money for right then. I even let someone live in my house for a couple of months when they became homeless. It's like I happen to be stable enough and have the resources to be able to help other people. And also, if you want to go down a list of things adults are expected to have, you know, it's just like I'm doing great there too. I have a 401k and a savings account and health insurance and company stock and an IRA and stuff like that. It's like if you want to try to make it look like I'm immature, okay, you can make judgmental assessments based on the fact that I'm hugging a stuffed animal or I have a glittery star on my shirt. But if you took like a piece of paper that has a list on it of tick all these things off to see if you're really an adult, I practically would check off every one of them for responsibility, maturity, taking, you know, account of your own actions and planning for the future, being a responsible and dependable person, and it's confusing sometimes when people pretend to have knowledge of how my life must be, and they have no idea how actually just kind of boringly mature I can be. So, next point. All of what I just showed you is how maturity works for me. It's what has resulted from my choices, and it's unfortunate that people would weaponize maturity in a way that I would never dream of doing to somebody else. I would never look at, hey, I've got this house, hey, I've got these fulfilling hobbies, hey, I don't have student debt, I'm a college graduate, I have this much money in the bank, I have this, I have that. I wouldn't look at all of those things that I showed you that happen to be true of my life and say, that's what mature is. If you don't have that, then you must not be mature. I'm not going to go down a list of all the things that mean success to me, that I am grateful and have been fortunate enough to have been able to achieve those things on my terms, and use that as a weapon to tell somebody else that they're a baby. I would never dream of doing that, and I don't understand why that would be satisfying for anyone, what anyone would get out of that, and really I can't imagine that anyone would need to do that unless they were insecure about themselves, or if they were just really tied to their own worldview and they truly thought there's only one superior way to be, and get joy out of telling other people that they're not there yet. I really want to emphasize, after I went through all of that stuff to show you what my life is like and what I've been fortunate enough to have, so much of what went right for me was luck or privilege. I'm absolutely 100% aware of that. And I'm sure as a privileged person in the United States of America, there are some things that are still very invisible to me, but I'm doing my very best to understand the dynamics that have put me where I am so that I can at least not get in the way of more vulnerable people. But I am completely aware that coming from a white upper middle class family who put me through school, I mean, I got a scholarship, but my family was able to pay my living expenses so I could get an education. I didn't have any illnesses or disabilities that got in my way or made it harder for me to achieve these things. I didn't experience hardship. I didn't have any accidents. I was so lucky and so privileged throughout my life that I ended up where I am, not just because I worked hard, even though I did. I made some very good choices that I could take credit for. And I have been diligent about pursuing what I wanted and not compromising, and sometimes accepting that I had to work really hard, but I can't take credit for all of that. I understand that there are systems that our society has created that we all work inside of, and I'm not going to take complete credit for that. I say that in a maturity context because there are many people who have not been fortunate to that extent, and they can't live independently because of an illness or a disability or some other reason why it's not safe or possible for them to do so. They maybe can't hold down a job. Maybe they can't save money because there's no other job that they can do besides the one that they were fortunate enough to get, and they're always just trying to make ends meet, so they're 40 and they don't have a savings account or an IRA. It's like, I'm not going to look at those things and say, well, if you're a disabled person and you need physically help to live, or you are an autistic person and you don't have it would hurt you to be able to do the things that I can do for my job. If there are aspects of your life that maybe there's a life circumstance where you're caring for a family member, etc., nobody has the same life circumstances as each other. So it doesn't really make sense to apply the same definition of what is mature, what is settled, what is success. And even though by so many objective measures I have achieved that, I would not look at someone who hasn't and say, well, if that person needs help to live, or they don't live in an ideal situation, or they're still struggling at my age to do what I did at 20, that doesn't mean that they're not mature. It means that they have different circumstances. So maturity is really different for almost everyone, and it's just so sad to watch people weaponize it and use it to try to make somebody feel worse about themselves for not achieving it. I'm assuming it ultimately comes down to, if I don't have what they want, or if I don't have what they felt made them become a more mature person, then I must not be mature. It's a lot like religion, I think, where people say, I didn't feel satisfied or truly enlightened until I accepted the beliefs that I currently have. And I'm not digging on religion or anything, but I'm saying, if you believe that nobody else's religion can possibly be satisfying, then you're kind of in this same camp, I guess. If you don't understand that there are different things that work for different people, then you're going to spend your life harassing other people to accept your reality, even if it wouldn't be the same for them as it would for you. So specifically, that I don't desire a partner and I don't desire children, so I don't have those things, I'm so often perceived as an immature person, as a person who must have wanted those things and just couldn't get them because I'm just too immature, or I don't have the skills, and it's just not what I wanted. So judging me is actually the immature, short-sighted thing to do in that situation. For my next point, let's take a little tangent and say, what if? What if, even though I just showed you that I'm not, as expected, living a sad and lonely and empty life, what if I was? What if, because life is hard for marginalized people, what if stuff was really hard for me and I really was struggling, and then you came along and you put in your comments smugly about how crappy my life was and how sad you were for me and how you're observing my regressive life that I must be engaging in to escape my trauma. Like, what if my life was terrible and you said that to me? Why do people do stuff like this? Does it make them feel superior? It's a good question. I mean, if we're going to judge each other entirely by what we think we see in each other's YouTube videos, maybe you spend all your time finding people that seem to be in a bad place and poking them and getting joy out of that. Like, that's really pathetic, and I'm not sure why you thought the reverse was going to be revealed by poking me. But if you truly thought that I was in a terrible place and you were going to bring up to me the abuse that you're sure I underwent, and you're going to bring that up without my consent in a public place without any warning, and you're going to say that knowing that you must be talking to somebody whose whole life was transformed by a negative experience, an abusive experience, a traumatic experience, but you have to bring it up because you need to make sure that person knows how awful their life is. You need to bring it up so that that person knows how sad they must be, how pathetic they look to you. What kind of person does that? And why in the world would you think that makes you mature? So even if a person is having a pretty good life, if they hear pity all the time from people like you, if they're always hearing people say, God, I'm so sorry for you, knowing that the choices that they willingly made about their lives are making other people think they must be sad and empty, I mean, that isn't nothing. I'm a pretty far extreme example of a person who just doesn't give a crap about that sort of thing, but, you know, because of all of the, I guess, privileged existence I've experienced, like, I was built up from a pretty young age that things were gonna be okay, things were cool, I was safe where I came from, and I had the freedom to explore who I was without feeling like if I do this, I'm going to get thrown out of my home or something. So, I don't know, there's a combination of things that contributed to me being able to deal with it, but even people like me and, you know, people who are otherwise doing pretty good, you know, it does have an effect. It does have a cumulative effect over time that if, you know, people are constantly telling us that our lives are sad, even if they're not, you're going to hear it and you're going to internalize it and you're going to say, maybe there's something wrong with me, or maybe I need to become super gung-ho about how not terrible my life is, maybe not be able to face it if it actually becomes terrible, not be able to make a change if it turns out that something is changing for you because you feel like you have to hold your ground or something. None of those happen to be the case for me, but I could imagine an awful lot of damage coming from having to hear this all the time, especially if you don't have the support that somebody like me has. It's like, it's painful to keep hearing those words. Words mean things. And, you know, if you were constantly having people react to the foods that you liked or the job that you had that you enjoyed by saying like, oh, I'm so sorry, boy, that must really be you know, hard for you to deal with. I hope your life gets better. I hope that you can find peace. And you're just thinking, I'm fine, why do people keep saying that to me? You understand what I mean. Just if people keep saying it to you, it's going to have some effect. So now, next point, I'm going to try to make this a little bit asexuality specific for you. This could be particularly harmful to asexual people, to treat them like they're less mature if they don't have sexual relationships or don't have you know, the typical interactions in their romantic relationships that you would generally expect. They're going to start to think that they don't have adult relationships at all if they don't have them by the typical standards, that they are definitively not mature relationships because they're incapable of them until or unless they have sex with someone. Obviously, if an immature person has immature sex, they're not automatically having a mature connection. People generally understand that, but then they still expect you to pass through that like it's a gate before you can be respected as an adult, and that's ludicrous. It is actually harmful to everyone to categorize non-sexual relationships as less mature than sexual ones. Most of us need to have a variety of relationship types in our lives. Most of us do want friends, and friends are not like a less mature version of an adult relationship. It is also possible to have a mature friendship that is not like a baby thing. And the idea that to get the respect that an adult deserves, you have to pass through this this particular type of action in your relationship, that you're not going to be allowed to earn the respect of an adult before, you know, with that, unless you compromise in this way, even if as an asexual person or otherwise, if you're sex averse or, you know, you're willing to have sex but you're upset that you don't feel about it the way you're supposed to, you're gonna feel like adulthood is it's something that you don't grasp without subscribing to somebody else's idea of, you know, what you have to do. And that external pressure, somebody else laying the groundwork for what counts, that's very immature. That's expecting somebody to earn their maturity that way and not through, what feels right to them. That's the kind of thing a kid does. It often actually does take more strength to look inside of yourself and say, you know what, I'm going to let my maturity be defined by what feels right to me. I'm going to make my own decisions. I'm going to consider everything on my terms, and I'm going to go forward into my life, with what my heart is saying or what I feel like will be fulfilling. I have to be allowed to explore those things instead of just following what other people are telling me I'm supposed to want. And it takes a certain level of self-awareness that I think people understate the maturity inherent in being able to go through that process with yourself, just a self-led self-examination, and say, do I really want this, or am I doing it because I'm expected to? And going against the grain to satisfy different needs. It's actually a pretty mature way of moving forward into your life. I'm not really interested in trying to earn the respect of somebody who says that I have to ignore how I feel before I can earn their respect. Like, that's not really respect, that's obeying. And it's completely counterintuitive for me that you would have to learn to obey authorities on what you're supposed to want before you count as mature. That just sounds, again, it sounds like the kind of thing that kids think, that they think there's a box to check. They think there's a place that they're getting graded, and once they check off all these boxes, then they count as a grown-up. But that's just not how it is. And those of us who have built a life on our own standards of fulfillment, that's not what it looks like from here. And we're just not worried about earning the respect of people who talk to us like that. It just seems very childish. We asexual and aromantic spectrum people, we are already worrying about a lot of stuff here, okay? We are already trying to forge a path that is not as well established. We're already kind of going against the grain sometimes to make a happiness that we can live with. And so it's just so shitty for people to try to give us something else to worry about that isn't even real. Just for them to say, I need you to be insecure about this because it doesn't make sense to me. Like, to put that on us and ignore the fact that we're already dealing with a lot of crap over this, with just plain societal expectations, that's just a vile thing to do. Okay, next point, also asexual specific. It's very common to shame people for consuming entertainment that is not for them. Most of the time, this is in the form of shaming adults for liking comic books, cartoons, young adult books, even stuff like science fiction and fantasy that's spun as babyish by a lot of people. And we're just told that it makes us less mature, and also that we probably can't understand more complex literature, and that we're doing this as a regressive way of entertaining ourselves. So, first point, obvious, most of the people who say stuff like this have not even tried watching or listening to or reading the source material. Like, they are literally ignorant of what is in it, and then they try to speak from authority. So some of us, when we hear stuff like that, will immediately start citing the more mature content in those pieces of entertainment. Like, we'll bring up how violent it is, or that it's got nuanced relationships in it, or that it has sex, or that it has adult situations. We'll point out that it contains stuff they wouldn't expect to be in it, because they're going from a popular conception of what must be in it, and they don't actually know, hey, it actually has this thing in it that's, not only very complex and meant for adults, but is decidedly not for kids. But that is also kind of not the point. You don't have to justify that the things that you like have adult stuff in them to enjoy them as an adult. You're not necessarily like enjoying them because of those things. There are aspects of it that are okay for kids that an adult can also enjoy, and that doesn't mean you're a child if you enjoy it. It just means that some things, it doesn't matter what age you are. And if you've never read anything like that, then you're not reading the right stuff, I guess. So I will say that as an asexual person, tons of media is not as relatable to me, because so much of it revolves around sexual relationships and or romantic relationships that have a sexual aspect. And even though a lot of asexual people, will be fine with consuming that stuff, or, we may even enjoy a lot of stuff that has those kinds of relationships in it, but it really just gets old to not be able to relate to what's going on, to be like, oh, well, this is happening again. I understand what it is. It's not a mystery to me. And, it may or may not be disturbing for some people if it gets very sexual. There's some asexual people who are fine with that, actively like that. But then there are some of us who explicitly prefer children's entertainment because of that, because it often does not depend for its enjoyment on situations we can't personally relate to. Most of us as human beings, we will necessarily consume entertainment that is about stuff we've never been through. That's fine. But when it's so consistent, and even, people who are not asexual or don't have any issues with sex themselves, they have very typical sexual relationships, even some of those people are like, yeah, it's kind of saturated with this kind of obsession that society has with those kinds of relationships. And sometimes we just want to see stuff that we can relate to. Most of us remember being kids. Most of us can relate to the children's entertainment that may have adults and or kids pursuing goals that we can relate to on a more personal level. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's unfortunate that almost everything that doesn't have sex and violence in it is pitched as children's stuff, because adults might want that too, and there's nothing inherently childish about something that lacks sex and violence. But that's how things are portrayed. That's a lot of it is how movies are rated, G-rated. Hey, it doesn't have sex, violence, or curse words. It's G-rated, which also means it's a kids movie. And it's sometimes it's hard to put your finger on, but a lot of us adult asexual people will prefer children's entertainment because of that aspect of, wanting to be able to connect on a personal level with what's going on. And so much adult entertainment does not let us do that. And that does contribute to this sort of childish mentality that gets assigned to us. It's not necessarily as, quote, childish as some people seem to think. It just really makes sense in a world that is not built for you, that you look for the little pockets where you can access it. Next point. I'm going to address the commenter directly on this one and include anyone who thinks how she thinks. Don't pretend for a second that you're making a supportive comment. You're making a shitty comment, and don't think I don't see you. What you're doing when you're saying things like, enjoy your life of regression and I hope you find peace, that is called concern trolling, and I don't buy it. Because in any other situation, if somebody said something like that to you about an aspect of your life, you would absolutely recognize it as an insult. I mean, let's say somebody posted a video about them and their family with their children, and you commented on it and said, "Enjoy your life of forever being enslaved to the whims of your crotch goblins." You wouldn't say that. I mean, maybe you would, you're a jerk. The point is, nobody who actually wants to make like a supportive comment is going to go into their space and make a judgmental, crappy comment about what the state of their life clearly reveals about their trauma. And I brought this up before, but even though I'm not a trauma survivor, I am so disgusted at the idea that you would bring up trauma as if you think that's cool to just say to somebody, to bring it up in somebody's YouTube comments, when you're also saying you think it changed their life into this back-ass words, like regressive, sad situation, that you believe they're a trauma survivor who is coping poorly and that they're forever stunted by something that happened to them, and you're pointing at it and saying like, "I know what happened to you and now your life sucks a lot. Doesn't that suck for you? It's so sad, but I sure hope that you have peace while you sit there and look in the mirror and be sad about the relationships you can't have now and hug your stuffed animals as you get old and lonely." Like, do you actually think I don't know that you are being an absolutely vile, disgusting person? And even though, as I said, like, I don't have any trauma to speak of, I'm just furious when people feel comfortable saying that to people. When, you know, if you think it didn't happen to me and you still say that stuff, that's gross just by itself. But if you actually think you're talking to a trauma survivor and you're willing to say stuff like that, how dare you? How dare you, disgusting person, say that to a human being and make it seem like you actually think you're making a positive comment, that you think you look good right now. That's absolutely vile. And now, my last point, because I can hear it now, I do not protest too much. So, it's inevitable if somebody makes like a comprehensive response to something about why someone else is wrong, they conclude they're automatically right because this person put a bunch of effort into responding to them. Isn't that convenient for you? It's a natural result of a life surrounded by people like that commenter that I have thought about maturity probably more than most people. And, you know, even though they're a dipstick, you know, you can't hear that as many times as I have without thinking about, you know, why do I think I'm mature anyway? Why do I feel like I need to defend it or define it in ways that other people don't feel is necessary? So, you know, I guess the immature thing would be to just point and go, no, but I have actually thought about it, and there are actual reasons why I think maturity can still apply to people who don't fit the traditional definitions for it. And if you look it up, there's not really a definition for it. If you try to say you live on your own terms, there are a lot of people who live in terrible, compromised situations, and it's not because they're immature. There are people who can't live independently, like I was talking about before, and it's not because they're not mature, it's because of some other reason. We don't even call elderly adults who can no longer take care of themselves immature. They haven't turned into children. I guess there actually are some people who make those comparisons because they have to wear diapers and they're fed by someone else, but you don't actually think an elderly person is immature. They're elderly. So even some of the go-tos about what maturity is don't really apply to everybody. You can usually find an exception, and I don't understand why those people don't think that we fall into one of those exceptional categories sometimes. So, I address this partly because I have done a lot of thinking about it, and I want to share it with other people who might be more vulnerable than me and might be having to internalize these damaging messages that authority figures and peers and possibly romantic partners are trying to instill in them for their own gain. So I have thought about it, and I've carefully considered some of the points that they make over the years. And even though you hear about peer pressure as a thing that kids and immature people deal with, it totally happens with adults as well. So, you hear plenty of messages long into your adulthood about what is expected of you, and I've certainly done thinking, and I've come to the conclusion that anyone who tries to control your life through shame-based, fear-based, or ignorance-based points is not worth listening to and is not worth trying to earn their respect. Finally, like it or not, I'm in a leadership position in my community to some extent. People listen to me. I've been around a long time. I'm one of the older people, and I have a platform. So a lot of younger and more vulnerable people are looking to me for how to handle these shitty comments that they're getting from authority figures. And I have to have something to tell them because I know what they're going through. I'm still going through it. And I can't believe I'm still being threatened at 40 that pretty soon, any day now, I'm gonna be sad. So I'm not talking about this to this extent just because, I feel personally attacked. It's like, because there are so many people who have to deal with this in their lives, who want to know, what do I say to people who think this about me? What better messages can I internalize about maturity, about what I should be looking for in adulthood? Who should I model myself on? What can I achieve as an asexual person? Or, just if you want to see an example of a person who is happy in their adulthood, who has taken a non-traditional path to maturity, to success, I'm happy to be there for those people, and I want them to know that there is a path for them, that I found one. They don't have to find the same one, but it's really it's so reassuring in a way that you can't imagine if you have never lacked these role models in your life. It's reassuring for them to be able to see, maybe some 20-year-olds are watching these videos thinking, I'm never going to be happy because I'm asexual. Oh, but look at her. She's 40 and she didn't compromise and she's happy. And, I've had a lot of people who, it's very flattering, but I've had a lot of people say, hey, I want to be like you when I grow up. And that's just, that's very meaningful to me, that, there are people who look at my lifestyle and they don't say, oh, that's pathetic, or I hope I don't end up like that. They're thinking, God, I hope that I can live on my own terms the way that she does. Or maybe they're even like, I wish I had a house full of toys. It's pretty great, actually. But I guess I live as an example of, a person who didn't let it get to them. And I guess I'd be lying if I said that the way that I live has nothing to do with my detractors, because it does make you feel a little stronger when you say, I don't care what you think, and maybe I'm gonna collect more toys now because you told me that it was dumb. Sometimes I tell a story of how when I was very young and I wanted to collect toys, and then I was told, well, save your allowance. And when you're bigger, when you're earning your own money, you can spend it on whatever you want. But you won't want toys when you're older. And, well, look at me now. I still want toys. I never stopped watching cartoons. I read Captain Underpants. I still like very silly stuff. I haven't lost what's awesome about those things. I haven't lost my sense of humor. I haven't let life beat it out of me. And I think it's really sad if you associate adulthood with sadness, with repression, with not being able to like what you want because other people might judge you. That's not what adulthood is for me. Never has been. And other people can do it too. I like to be there, to present who I am to the world and let people who need to see that know that it exists, that they can also be an example like this. And I'm sure that people like my detractor will laugh at me and say, God, it's so pathetic that she thinks she has followers. I guess all my 5,000 plus subscribers are just made up or something. But how they try to shame you into thinking nothing you do is worth it, that you're not making any difference at all. But I know for a fact that what I've done is important to many people. I'm not just saying it to hear myself talk. I'm not just saying it to convince myself. I'm saying it to tell everybody. I thought this was important. I followed my heart. I followed all those cheesy believe in yourself messages that they're going to say at the end of the cartoon shows that I grew up with in the 80s. I internalized good stuff. I'm not going to internalize stuff that came from hatred. I've always been a word person, and I kind of feel a responsibility now to use my words to give people terminology and concepts that they can use in their lives. It's actually really common in my comments for people to say, I'm so glad you put that into words. I knew that I felt that, or I knew that on some level, but I've never heard it spoken, and it makes so much sense now. I want to give that to people, and that just happens to be one of the things I excel at, is putting difficult to say things into words. I'm not necessarily so good at it on the fly, but I'm okay at public speaking, I guess, if I'm prepared. But these are very candid videos. You don't want to completely judge my wordsmithing abilities by these, I'm sure, but in general, I do a decent job converting concepts into words, and I feel a responsibility to do that for my followers, for my fan base, so to speak, for vulnerable people who are listening, who need somebody to say that stuff. So for people who might otherwise think I'm just making a video to clap back at somebody and that it's a personal disagreement, of course it's always going to be personal, but it's not why I made the video, because I already decided when I blocked that person that they weren't worth talking to. Why would I want to talk to somebody who came out of the woodwork hoping that they could make me feel shitty? Like, I have nothing to say to her except for the shaming that I dished back at her in the previous point about how dare you try to use a trauma reaction to make your point. That's just so sorry. That's just so low. So really, it's just low and weak of you to frame what I'm trying to say to my community as actually just an admission that you were right. That actually you struck a nerve. You got me. You figured out what my knickers are in a twist about, and I wouldn't be this upset or talk about this for this long if you weren't right on some level. That's just absurd. For you to twist the message that I'm trying to give of hope and positivity for the people who are willing to listen, and make it about you, that's just, now that we're talking about it, that sure is childish of you. How incredibly filthy of you to frame my attempts to help vulnerable people in my community as a sign that you were right all along. You wish you knew how to have fun, you jerk. Oh my gosh, look, it's a bear stack! Look! They're magnetic. Look at these guys! Oh no! Hey!
Ice Bear is my favorite.